Okay, this is English 101, week 12, part 12. This is the final part. So Fromm is, I'm at the bottom of page 4, and Fromm's going to give some examples, and I'll explain them in a little bit. So he's talking about the history of disobedience. He says, from Luther to the 19th century, one was concerned with overt and explicit authorities, meaning people outside you, people like kings. Luther, the Pope, the princes wanted to uphold it. The middle class, the workers, the philosophers tried to uproot it. So there were a bunch of people who, like Luther is the Protestant church. This is not Martin Luther King Jr. from America. This is Martin Luther. He's talking about the guy that broke from the Catholic Church to found the Protestant church. Now, Luther was a kind of rebel in his own way, where he thought the Catholic Church was an irrational authority, and he wanted to have a more rational authority. But here, the point is that Luther is the Protestant church, the Pope is the Catholic Church, and the princes are all the rich people. And they wanted people to obey. And Fromm says, the middle class, the workers, and the philosophers tried to uproot it. Meaning they were like, a lot of the workers and philosophers and middle-class people were like, why should we listen to rich people? Why should we listen to the Catholic Church? Why should we listen to the Protestant Church? Maybe we should figure this out for ourselves. Maybe you guys maybe you guys are an irrational authority and you guys do not have our best interests at heart. Maybe you want us to obey because it's good for you. It's not actually good for us, the workers, the philosophers, the regular everyday people. And that's been a battle, he says, going on for hundreds of years between rich and powerful people like the church and the princes and the nobility and the kings, and people like philosophers and workers who are like, hey, I think obeying you guys is actually not a good idea. It's not working out great for us. Wages are going down, that kind of thing. The fight against authority in the state, as well as in the family, was often the very basis for the development of an independent and daring person. So some of the most important people got to be important because they said, you know what? I'm not going to listen to you anymore. I'm going to figure this out for myself. And they started a revolution. And they said, you know what? Maybe there shouldn't be a boss at the top who gets all the money and all the workers just get a little bit of money and the boss gets tons of money. Maybe everybody should be paid equally. How's that for an idea? Or maybe the Catholic Church shouldn't tell us what's true. Maybe we should let scientists do that instead of listening to the Bible. And that was a kind of revolution. The fight against authority was inseparable from the intellectual mood which characterized the philosophers of the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was the whole time period when people were like, maybe we should stop listening to churches and start listening to scientists. That's the base. That's what the Enlightenment is, basically. It happened in the 17th century. 1700s, 1800s. Now I'm on the top of page 5, the final page. The critical mood was one of faith in reason. Meaning they believed in the power of the brain to figure things out, instead of just being like, I'll do what God tells me to do. I'll do what the priests tell me to do. The critical mood was one of faith in reason, and at the same time of doubt in everything which is said or thought, inasmuch as it is based on tradition, superstition, custom, power. Right? So the church says, well, when the church does things because of tradition, superstition, custom, and power, right? So the church says, hey, this is how we've always done it. That's tradition. Superstition, God will strike you down if you disobey me. Custom, again, this is what we do. This is the rituals, that you have to do the rituals every day no matter what. And power. Churches are very powerful. They got a lot of money. They got a lot of power. They can make you do what they want. And people were like, no, I know, those are all stupid reasons to do something. Because think about tradition for a second. People go, well, you should do this. Well, why? Because we've always done it this way. The church says. Well, why should we, just because something has always been done, why does that mean we should keep doing it? Is it a good idea, or are we just doing it over and over again because we've done it like that for hundreds of years? Maybe if it's not working, we should stop. But the Catholic Church says, doesn't matter whether it's working or not. It's tradition. You got to do it because it's tradition. Or superstition. They go, God will strike you down. That's pretty scary. If you believe in God. All right, cool. He has some Latin here. The principles, I don't know how to pronounce this. The principles sapere aude and de omnibus, don't worry about it. He translates it for you. Dare to be wise, and of all we must doubt. Meaning you gotta dare to be wise. You gotta dare to make your own decisions and not just listen to authority. And the other one he says is, of all one must doubt. Meaning when someone tells you something, don't just listen to them. Find out if it's true. Notice, by the way, the principle, he has it in Latin there, but he translates it as, of all one must doubt. Meaning whatever you find out, you should be like, is that true? And find out if it's worth paying attention to. That's Socrates. I hate to bring it back to Plato. I know you're sick of Plato. But Socrates' whole thing was Phaedrus would say things, and Socrates would go, is that true, though? I don't know. That's right. Okay, cool. These two things, daring to be wise and of all one must doubt, were characteristic of the attitude which permitted and furthered the capacity to say no. Now, we don't have much time in this video left, but he brings up a very complicated example in the second to last paragraph. This is paragraph 17. The case of Adolf Eichmann is symbolic of our situation and has significance far beyond the one in which his accusers in the courtroom in Jerusalem were concerned with. Eichmann is a symbol of the organization man, the alienated bureaucrat for whom men, women, and children have become numbers. He is a symbol of all of us. We can see ourselves in Eichmann. But the most frightening thing about him is that after the entire story was told in terms of his own admission, he was able in perfect good faith to plead his innocence. It is clear that if he were once more in the same situation, he would do it again, and so would we, and so do we. We don't need to spend a ton of time on it. It's an example. I'll tell you the example real fast. I already told you the example. Eichmann was a Nazi. And Eichmann was hired by the Nazis, and they were just like, look, we want to kill a lot of people, so we need to figure out how to get them to death camps and kill them as cheaply as possible. And they were like, Eichmann, can you figure out how to... And he was an engineer. And he was just like, okay, I'll do it. And he just figured out how to, like with paper. Like, he was like an engineer. He was like, how do we kill people for... Because you shoot everybody in the head, but that's really expensive. They try to run away. Maybe we'll put them in the showers. We'll poison the shower. And, right? It was just like he had all of these ideas for how to kill people. But he didn't care about any of them. He never looked at the people. He wasn't like shooting people in the head. He was like a business guy. But he was like, oh, well, I guess we can put them on trains and tell them we're going to take care of them, but we're not really. And we'll put them in a camp, and then we'll kill them. Like, he came up with this crazy idea that, like, they would bring you into the showers and they would kill everybody in the showers with poison gas. But on the way in, the Nazis would be like, hey, you people going in the showers, make sure you keep your clothes in this spot, because you got to get it when you exit the showers. They're never exiting the showers. They're all dying. But if you tell people to organize their clothes before they go into the death chamber, they believe they're going to get out alive, so they don't panic. That's the kind of thing he thought of. And the thing about Eichmann that was fucked up is he didn't think he did anything wrong. Because they tried to put him on trial and, like, throw him into jail. And he was like, look, I just did what I was told. Like, I didn't want to kill any of those people, but my boss told me to, and I think I should listen to my boss. And they were like, why didn't you just say no? And he was like, look, if I said no, I probably would have been shot, and they would have just got another guy to do it. So what difference does it make? And he really thought he didn't do anything wrong, because he was like, look, I'm in the military. It's my job to do what the bosses say. And I didn't want to kill anybody. I had no problem with Jews. I thought they were all perfectly nice. I just did what they told me to do. And if I hadn't done it, somebody else would have done it. And if I hadn't done it, I would have been shot. So and he really thought he was innocent. And a lot of people were like, that's scary that a person could help kill so many people and feel like they did nothing wrong. All right. And Fromm comes to an ending here. The organization man, meaning the guy who when he says organization man, he means like a guy who works for a business that does whatever the boss says. Why? Because the boss says it. It's the organization. I have to do what they say. The organization man has lost the capacity to disobey. He is not even aware of the fact that he obeys. At this point in history, the capacity to doubt, to criticize, and to disobey may be all that stands between a future for mankind and the end of civilization. Pretty interesting. And I will tell you, if you want a great example of this, and you also want to watch a real disturbing movie, if you're up for watching a disturbing movie, and again, it has sexual assault in it, so keep that in mind, but also it's a true story, and it's fucking fascinating, and it's a pretty good movie. It's called Compliance. And I'll put I have a trailer for it up here. I'll put the trailer at the end for you to consider. But it's a movie about people who obey, and why do they obey? Because this guy calls them on the phone and tells them to do stuff, and they just do it. And it's real interesting. Because the guy says he's a cop, and they're like, well, I guess I have to do what he says, but he's not a cop. So yeah. All right. So this is Fromm. He basically says, look, a lot of people throughout history have thought obedience was good and disobedience is bad, but disobedience is actually, you have to be disobedient sometimes. If you're just obeying all the time, you're not making decisions. You're not free. You have to be able to disobey in order to be free. And that's tough, because obeying just means you do what people tell you to do. But disobeying sometimes means you got to figure out when should you disobey and when should you not disobey. And that's hard to figure out. And even if you figure out and disobey, there are consequences to disobeying that might not be super fun. But also, that's the only way you can live a fully human life, is to make your own decisions. Otherwise, you're just a robot. Okay. That is Fromm. If you have questions about that, ask me. If you have comments to make them on the discussion board. Revise paper 1, revise paper 2. Paper 3 is due at the end of November. Paper 4 will be mid-December. You must quote both the from and the thing we're going to look at next week, but I'll tell you more about that next week. And that is the end of week 12 for our class. I love you all. This is the video I've made for you in the fall of 2021. And I'm really rooting for you guys too. I know not many people have gotten this far and are even going to watch it, but I'm really rooting for you guys. Think about obedience and disobedience in your own life, when it's good to obey, when it's good to disobey, when it's bad to obey, when it's bad to disobey, and talk about that on the discussion board. All right. Good luck, everybody.